Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Crimson Tide Rewind presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. Roll Tide, everyone. This is Roger Hoover alongside former Crimson Tide linebacker Cory Reamer. And Cory, I know we were at Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday. It felt like the return there with a 63-0 win against Western Kentucky, but this really is the start to Alabama football season. Crimson Tide Rewind on Monday nights.
That's right, exactly. We're kicking it off finally, officially now. This is it. I tell you what, it was a great way to kick off the season, but it had such a completely different feel than the last 17 years that we've had Coach Saban around. This program is just under a different leadership. I thought it was just watching the broadcast, watching it on TV, watching the players run out. They kept a lot of things the same that we're used to seeing, just running out of tunnel. Music's the same, but coaches are different, players are different. This whole new world of college football just brought a whole different feel to this past weekend, not just in Tuscaloosa, but across everywhere, with some of the players that were on our roster last year now playing at other schools, and we got new guys in. We're all trying to learn a lot about each other, add in a mix of whole new coaching staff, whole new schemes. It was a welcoming weekend for a new era for Alabama football.
And coaching transitions can be tricky by nature, and a lot of times you're not necessarily inheriting the best situation, but for Kalen DeBoer taking over for Nick Saban, you're inheriting a team that won the SEC championship, made it to the college football playoff, and still so many key pieces are in place for this year. Yeah,
somebody asked me the other day, I was like, how do you think you were there when Coach Saban showed up during that transition? What do you think Coach DeBoer is going through at this point in time? I was like, well, it's a very different situation than when Coach Saban showed up. He comes in and cleans house and got everybody in the building was new when Coach Saban showed up, and he also was inheriting a team that had just gone 6-7. And we had some good teams a couple years before Coach Saban got there, but nothing like what Coach DeBoer just walked into. One of the most talented rosters in college football. He's recruited extremely well, and coming off of an incredible run, following one of the best coaches in college football ever. It's a little bit different to pick up and run with than what Coach Saban did 17 years ago. So I thought he did a great job. I was excited to see what he was going to be doing. There's a lot of new faces, a lot of new names. We're all trying to get familiar with it. This is something that, as a fan, it was hard to adjust to because it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what this is going to look like. This is all new to me, but I'm excited to see what Coach DeBoer and his staff are going to be doing. This team looked really good on Saturday, got off to a good start with a convincing win against a good team. I mean, Western Kentucky is not like they're a competitive Conference USA. They're a team that has won a lot of ball games. And to go out there and put 63 points up and get a shutout, you don't want to overstate it. But, I mean, this also might be – you look around what happened across all other places in college football, this might be what the new football looks like with the transfer portal, NIL. Some of these teams just that used to be pretty competitive against the Power Four, maybe it's a little bit harder for them now because they lose a lot of talent if you're good one year and somebody's going to come pick you off and take you, Georgia's going to pick you up. Alabama's going to pick you up. Miami's going to pick you up. Like it's probably a lot harder for those teams, the UABs, the Western Kentuckys, to keep, solid rosters together year in and year out.
What else has really impressed you about Coach DeBoer in this transition? Because there are some things that do carry over from the Saban era, but also he is starting to put his own spin on things.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about it at the pregame broadcast of he's come in and he's put his own stamp on things. He knows how he likes to do things. One of the biggest shakeups I feel like, and we talked about it, was morning practices. These guys are going out there and practice at 9:30 in the morning, and then they're going to class in the afternoons. I mean, if you're a coach that's coming in to take over for one of the best to ever do it, you're probably looking at, well, how did he do things? What was his structure? Am I going to mimic those as closely as I possibly can to try to recreate the success that Coach Saban had? But the good thing is that DeBoer's coming into an era of college football where it's completely different. Even through the last couple of years that Coach Saban has been there, things are just not the same as they used to be. You're focusing on different things. You're worried about recruiting your own roster constantly. You're making sure that the players are having a good time. And so what I was most impressed with of what I've heard about so far is that he's really kind of stuck to his guns of what he likes to do, how he likes to do things, and he's not changed his ways. And the players have really accepted that and adapted to it, and they seem to be enjoying it. A lot of music at practice. You saw a lot of pictures, being taken on the sidelines. It's like here's a proof that Coach Saban's no longer there as these guys are getting around after a turnover and they're taking pictures on the field and all this other stuff. So, he understands. It feels like he's got a pretty good grasp of what it takes to be successful in this new age of college football that we're in now. And I'm excited to see, these players have obviously responded pretty well to it.
Really good start for the Kalen DeBoer era with the Crimson Tide picking up a 63-0 win against Western Kentucky. We're going to talk all about it, plus look ahead to what's coming up this Saturday against South Florida. If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, we welcome your phone calls. Give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. Again, that's 877-202-2262. We will take your calls and discuss Crimson Tide football. We're with you for the next hour from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Two tight end look with Robbie Oots and C.J. Dupree in the ball game for Alabama. Also three wideouts. Quarterback deep. Milroe. Touchdown, Alabama. He goes left side. He walks in, and the Crimson Tide gets its first points of the 2024 season, and the first with Kalen DeBoer as the head coach.
Chris Stewart on the call of Alabama's first touchdown of the season and the first of, 9 touchdowns on the night. Jalen Milroe, impressive there as he is back in that starting role for the Crimson Tide. Looks solid in his debut this year.
Yeah, it's exciting to have him back. And I know there was a lot of optimism of coming through camp, of the progress that he was making with this new staff. I mean, we saw him last year. You remember back to last season, the beginning of the year, there were a lot of he was struggling a little bit. He has obviously a ton of athletic ability, but there was some moments in the games where it was just not clicking for him or he just didn't find his rhythm. And he obviously sits for the South Florida game, which we've got coming up this week, and then turns around and gets a start again against Texas, and saw how he was able to progress throughout the rest of the season with the, capping it off towards the end, and how well he was playing. And then you get this staff that comes in. You've seen what DeBoer's been able to do with a guy like Michael Penix, how much he grew from his time in Indiana and Washington, and then going in the first round of the NFL draft. And so there's a lot of excitement about what this staff was going to be able to do with a guy like Jalen Milroe, who's got all this talent. That how do you hone it in? How do you polish him off to where he's one of those guys that can make a lot of plays with his feet, but also make plays with his arm? Can he make strides in reading defenses and being able to, and we saw a lot of that this weekend. We didn't see a ton. I mean, this was obviously the opening game. He didn't have a lot of pass attempts. I think he had less than 10. I think it was 9 that he had. But what he was able to do was feel comfortable in the pocket, make a lot of plays with his feet, which is obviously his strength. We talked a lot about it last year. It's like, don't run away. He was trying too early in the season of trying to make plays with his arm when there were so many opportunities to just take off and run with the football and keep the drives alive. And it almost like he was trying to be somebody that he's not. And this year, especially on Saturday, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. He really has embraced of who he is. When the pocket starts collapsing, he's able to feel that pressure and then really turn on the jets and run for a couple touchdowns and make big plays. So I'm excited when we get into some more, conference games, some tougher defenses that we're going to face down the road, to see how that's really where we're going to see where he's really grown as a quarterback, a pocket passer. But it was good to see what he did on Saturday.
Again, here at Alabama, the uniforms really don't change too often, but one notable change was with Jalen Milroe, as well as the 3 other captains. The captaincy on the jersey, I don't think we really talked about it much going into the ball game, but did you like seeing that? The leadership really designated for Milroe, along with Tyler Booker, as well as Malachi Moore and Deontay Lawson, defensive side.
It definitely threw me off. I was wondering what it was. It's like, this is so odd. I don't know if I've ever seen a C on an Alabama uniform in the past. And so this was something that we talked about last segment with Kalen DeBoer doing what he likes to do, naming the captains at the beginning of the year. And we all probably knew who those guys were going to be, and it wasn't a secret who they would probably be at the end of the season. Everybody understands who the captains are, but I think it gives a lot of gives this leadership group, those 4 guys, really to be able to take the reins of taking over this team and being out there. It's just different. It's just, is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. Is there a better way to do it? I have no idea. But we saw that this, coming out there. It was definitely something that took some adjusting. I was like, what in the world are we doing here? This is something that I've never seen before. But Jalen Milrose, obviously, you saw through, during the offseason, Tyler Booker's been one of those guys that's been an outspoken leader for this team. And I was really excited to see Malachi Moore. We talked about it in the pregame as well. Is he's a guy that you lose so much in the secondary. Malachi Moore is a guy that had some big plays, really impacted the defense his freshman year. And then he's been battling some injuries, trying to find his way back on the field, not really out there consistently as much as he was his freshman year. And for him to get that captaincy and be the leader of that secondary that has a lot of question marks was exciting for me because I believe in him. I know he's a great player. And you need somebody like him that's going to be that anchor for a secondary that's got a lot of new faces. And that was the question mark on defense that we were all kind of excited to see how they were going to play. And I thought they played extremely well. So, hopefully that continues throughout the season.
Answered some questions on Saturday. And if you'd like to ask us a question tonight on the show, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. Want to invite you as well to keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. We're live at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Steps, looks, fires, picked off again. Sam again, 20, going to his right, 25, 30, still on his feet, across the 40, down the sideline, still on his feet, still going, tight ropes, finally tripped down as he gets near the 20-yard line. Keon Sabb, his second interception, and the Tide turns away the Toppers again.
That was the second interception of the night by Keon Sabb for Alabama, his second interception. But tonight's first question brought to you by J&J Apparel. Be sure to come by J&J Apparel at 1926 University Boulevard this Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. to meet Alabama men's basketball guard Chris Youngblood. You can shop and also talk shop with Bama's best all season long with Tide Thursday at J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear. Online at jnjapparel.net. RTR with J&J. And that first question of the night. Again, this defense answered a lot of questions, and the SEC Defensive Player of the Week, Keon Sabb, with 2 interceptions. Great to see that in his Alabama debut as he comes over from a team he just played in the college football playoff, Michigan.
Yeah, this is still the bizarre thing to me is a guy that just played and won a national championship is starting for us in the secondary. But hey, we welcome him. We lose a guy like Caleb Downs from last year's team, who's obviously one of the best secondary guys to come through in a long time. Lose him to Ohio State through the transfer portal. How are you going to replace a guy like him? In steps Keon Sabb and has a phenomenal first outing for us. And, I want to pump the brakes on the hype, but he played extremely well. TJ Finley also is a guy that threw it right to him a couple times. He made some great plays. Don't take away from that. I just watching this game, and TJ Finley, we've seen him over the years, LSU, Auburn, Texas State. He's not a guy that's really threatened this Alabama team at wherever he has been, and there's a lot of it. I think he ended up getting pulled right before halftime in this game. But you still got to go out there and make plays, and Keon Sabb did that. He's got a great discipline. This secondary, this whole scheme that we're running is completely different from what we've seen in the past under Coach Saban. And I thought that they played extremely well. And Keon Sabb obviously is a guy, natural ability to see what the eyes are doing from the quarterback, go out there and make big plays. I'm excited for him. Go out there and got 2 picks, and his first start is under at Alabama was a huge one. And I thought he was going to take that second one all the way to the house. I was hoping for him that he was, but I'm excited to see him. This is going to be a fun unit to watch to see how they continue to progress. Watching Kane Womack and implement his system that is completely different from what we've seen or what we kind of grown accustomed to. Defense has always been that staple that you can kind of rely on for Alabama defense, for Alabama teams in the past. So to see how this defense went out there, was able to get the shutout, and they were able to really play extremely well when their backs were up against the wall. It's not like, Western Kentucky had bad field position the entire game. There was a couple turnovers that we gave them some great field position, had opportunity to score points, and they weren't able to get any on the board. So it says a lot about the mentality of this defense of these guys are having fun. Very different from what we've seen in the past of very complicated, trying to match wits with other offensive coordinators from the defensive side of the ball. It sounds like, and it looked like, Kane Womack going out there, keeping it simple, letting these guys go out there and be athletes and play fast. And we saw a lot of that on Saturday.
Certainly did. And coming up this Saturday, if you're coming to Tuscaloosa, hope you'll join the entire game day broadcast crew. Will be live on stage at 3 o'clock from Vector Security Champions Lane. It is the best pregame fan fest in the country. And this week, Champions Lane opens at 1:30 p.m. You'll be able to get your photo taken with all 6 national championship trophies and all 9 SEC championship trophies from the Nick Saban era. We'll also have all the early games from the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, plus live music, food trucks, and of course ice-cold beer in the Legends Lounge Beer Garden, where there's never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. If you'd like to join us on the show tonight, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Milroe with time, looking, firing deep. He's got a man wide open. Catch is made. 40, 30, 20, 10. Touchdown, Alabama. The deuce got loose for the first time in a Bama uniform. Ryan Williams takes it to the house. 84 yards. Touchdown, Bama.
Ryan Williams in a Crimson Tide jersey. If you'd like to be part of our show tonight, submit your question to the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And Cory, before we go to the phones, we got to talk about Ryan Williams, the SEC Freshman of the Week. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, and a lot of yards.
SEC Senior in high school Player of the Week. 17 years old. He's supposed to be still a senior in high school. He's out there playing and making the plays that he was able to make this past weekend. It's impressive. You lose a couple guys, some talented wide receivers from last year's team, and he steps in, and you don't miss a single beat. What he was able to do. The first one was just speed off the ball. He just outran everybody. But I was really impressed by the second touchdown that he was able to make, and going up there and competing for the ball, breaking away from a couple tackles and still making plays for such a young kid. That's how college football is now. These freshmen just come in immediately ready to play. This guy's going to be something special.
I hate to put this kind of pressure on him, but, you were around for this time. Julio Jones, highly touted recruit, number 1, same as Ryan Williams all throughout, in a similar part of the country as well. Did it feel like this a little bit when Julio made his debut in 08?
You just knew that they were different. You've had all these guys that come in. They've got all these credentials behind them. You knew they were big recruits, but I remember when Julio showed up, and at the time, freshmen really weren't contributing very much to this. So it's a little bit different today than it was then. And Coach Saban pretty much laid the law down of this guy can help us win ball games. And he didn't have to tell us that, because as soon as we went out for the first 7-on-7, you could tell this guy was just operating on a different level. And so, you could, as soon as you saw it out there and you've heard and you've seen all the scrimmages, all the highlight reels that have come out of practice of what he's able to do, this guy's got a different gear. He's a special player. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on him, but I think he warrants it. He knows that he's got it, and we're going to try to find a way to get him the ball as much as possible, because he's just a different breed, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And as he said after the ball game, Jalen Milroe wears number 4, Ryan Williams wears number 2. 4 + 2 equals
6, baby. That's it. We saw it a couple times. He had that Randy Moss stat line, 2 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'll take that every single week. If that's all we can get him, if those are the results that we get from it, I'm happy with it.
Great debut for Ryan Williams as we come to you live tonight from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. Baumhower's Victory Grille, ready for football, fun, and great food, and your big game headquarters all season long. More than 60 televisions all dialed into your favorite team's games. You'll never miss a play of the action. If you're going to the game, visit your local Baumhower's before or after for legendary fun, legendary food, and legendary celebrations. Before we wrap up this segment of Crimson Tide Rewind, we want to go to the phones for our first call of the night, and for that, we go to Florence, Alabama, where Brad joins us now. Roll Tide, Brad.
Roll Tide, Ryder. How are y'all?
Doing great. How about you?
Oh, doing great. That I was just listening, sort of stole my thunder, but I wanted to comment on Ryan Williams, and just I'd watched a couple of the clips on the YouTube too when they did his interview. But I mean, he just seemed like a really class act as far as in his interviews, but very impressive athlete, and how he reminded me so much of Julio in a lot of just how he come out quick, playing fast. But I wanted to see what y'all's thoughts were. I know that you had to be impressed with the stats. And then I wanted to comment on how Saab played on defensive back with those 2 picks. I was really excited to see them come out and playing fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to reiterate what we just said, Ryan Williams coming in as such a young player, making the plays that he was able to make. He's going to be – you got a lot of weapons. Jeremy Bernard out there, the transfer from Washington. You can't have what Ryan Williams was able to do on Saturday without having some other weapons that are on that offensive side of the ball. And you saw Jeremy Bernard getting a lot of respect from the secondary from Western Kentucky, which allowed Ryan Williams to go out there and be able to make some explosive plays. But it's just fun to see when you get a guy like that. Like I said, it's just a different level of talent. He's going to be a guy that seems like he's a good leader. All these kids that are coming in now, too, they're so brand conscious. They're aware of who they are and what they're, how they treat the media, how they treat their fans, what they've got going on externally outside of football can really propel them into careers beyond college football. And what they can do at the same time, running parallel tracks of I play football, but I saw that he's got a podcast going on as well as a freshman, 17-year-old. Those are things that we were not thinking about when I showed up on campus my freshman year. These players are just they're aware of what their opportunities are, and I think that makes them so much more mature when they show up on campus. It's like, I'm here. Let's go ahead and get this, get these opportunities going, see what we can do to make the most of it. And he's taking advantage of it. He's going to be a good outlet for a Jalen Milroe. And then with Sab as well, stepping in and being able to play as quickly as he possibly, transferring in from Michigan, doing what he did on Saturday, making a bunch of big plays, learning a completely new system. He wasn't just the only one. It was the entire defense that were learning new systems, new vocabulary, new schemes. We're not doing a lot more of the pattern matching man secondary schemes that we did under Coach Saban. It's a lot more zone, passing off of routes, but you saw that they looked pretty comfortable and they're playing fast. You mentioned on Saturday that swarm mentality, swarm defense is what Kay Womack's going out there and trying to emphasize. And these guys were moving around and playing fast, which is fun to see from the defensive side of the ball.
What would your podcast lineup have been if you had the Cory Reamer podcast, giving your unfiltered thoughts on the Crimson Tide? I mean, are we talking John Parker Wilson, Baron Huber? Who would have been your co-host?
Yeah, Preston Dial, John Parker, Baron Huber, all those guys. Brian Selman and David Ross, all those people that I was able to play with. We have Mike Johnson as well. We got a big group, Brad Smelly, that text. We're texting all day Saturday, watching this game, trying to give our thoughts and, reminiscing on a lot of the old memories that we had, and then what looks different and how we like or dislike or things that are different, whatever we're seeing. And those would be my guys. They got a lot of character.
It's just a shame Coach Saban couldn't hear your thoughts during that podcast.
I come on here and I do this radio show and I keep it clean, and then the text message thread is very different. If we're doing a podcast where you can really let loose, it's more of like a Pat McAfee style of things. You probably have some guys that are a lot more colorful than what we present on the radios every single night, but it'd be a lot of fun.
It certainly would be. We're going to keep having fun here at Baumhower's coming up as we're with you until 7 o'clock talking about Alabama's win against Western Kentucky and what's coming up Saturday against South Florida. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
1st and 10, Alabama at the 39-yard line of Western Kentucky. The handoff once again goes to Miller, and Miller shakes free again. 20, 15, 10-5, dives, touchdown Alabama. 39 yards, Jam Miller finds the end zone, and the Crimson Tide adds to its lead. It is now 27-0.
Tonight we're taking your phone calls, also answering questions on Twitter as well. The Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. Appreciate Austin reaching out from Decatur, saying that he is very excited for the dedication that's coming up on Saturday night, Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Of course, Cory Reamer, you played for Coach Saban. You and so many teammates are going to find their way to make sure they're there to celebrate Coach Saban and everything he did for Alabama.
Yeah, it's a big honor for him. I mean, he's well-deserved, obviously, what he was able to accomplish over the last 17 years. I'm excited about it. We get to see a bunch of the players that come back and get to honor Coach Saban. I was excited to see him leave game day, fly back, be there for the opening, for the Western Kentucky game, sitting in the box with Miss Terry. And it seems like we're all wondering what the relationship would be or how much, he was going to be around. I know he's still on staff and doing a lot of things for the university, and see him be able to be there for that first game, and then next week we get to honor him is, it's going to be fun. It's well-deserved. He's done a phenomenal job of building this program. Makes it so much easier for Kalen DeBoer to just pick up and run with it. And Kalen DeBoer is a great coach in his own right. But where he left this Alabama program from where he took it over 17 years ago, I think Alabama fans, the least you can do is give him this sort of an honor of naming the field after him for all that he's done.
It's going to be emotional, I know, for all Alabama fans, obviously former players. Just what do you think is going to be going through his mind when he kind of just sits back and thinks, because he doesn't like to slow down very much, but he's going to have to slow down a little bit on a Saturday, probably watch a video tribute that really documents how special the Saban era was.
Yeah, you listen to what he used to say to us all the time is every play has a life and history of its own. You got to forget it and move on to the next. And I think I've told this story before of the halftime or after we won the national championship game in the Rose Bowl. You're sitting in the locker room, and it's like you have to force yourself to celebrate because you've been so kind of brainwashed, or you've been so well trained by him to not celebrate those moments for too long because there's something else that you're going after and trying to accomplish. That that's the end of the road, and it's not the end of the road for him. He's obviously doing game day, doing a lot of things that are keeping him busy, but I think he'll finally be able to appreciate, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. With him, you never know. But for him to be able to sit back and kind of see all his guys that are there, the reception that we're going to do for him is with former players beforehand, to see all of us coming back. A lot of us are planning on being there. I think he's going to, it might sink in at that moment in time of what his impact on this university and what he was able to do for this football program. I hope he's able to enjoy it. And I know he seems like he's enjoying, his new gig as being on TV. And I know he was already, went viral for his moment during break with Pat McAfee. And Pat McAfee's over there dancing, and Coach Saban's sitting there just thinking about what the next segment is going to look like. And I think he's having a blast. But I think he's enjoying not having to do the day in and day out. I think he's going to miss a part of it, but it's going to be fun to celebrate him.
He's playing more golf than we are.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He doesn't have two kids running around. He's doesn't have much to worry about except for on Saturdays. He's a guy that everybody wants to hear speak. So I imagine that he's getting pulled in every direction. Josh Maxson's probably having to beat people off with a stick. Of the commercials that I've seen him in have been phenomenal. This is just the Verbo commercial that I saw this week was absolutely incredible. I didn't know he had it in him to be such a. They're finding perfect parts for him to play. I think he's having a lot of fun, and I think that this is going to be, a moment for him that he's going to enjoy celebrating on Saturday.
Yes, the fans, stay in your seats. Coming up, halftime of the South Florida game. It will be very special, the official dedication of Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind. It's presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
But it doesn't really matter because they got 4 touchdowns already with 3:05 to go. Bama in 2 minutes. Haynes again. Haynes in a foot race. Haynes beyond midfield. Haynes still turning. Haynes 10-5 touchdown. Justice served 85 yards.
The seasons stay cool when you purchase a limited edition Alabama Yeti. These vintage Yeti cups are only available at Champions Lane and at program stands throughout Bryant-Denny Stadium. Elevate your game day with Yeti. We continue live with Crimson Tide Rewind from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills and the running game. Just heard that highlight from Justice Haynes. We talked a bit about it on the pregame show, Cory, that Jam Miller, Justice Haynes did some great things when they would get limited opportunities last couple of years for the Crimson Tide. Now unleashed, these guys could be really special moving forward.
Yeah, we saw how explosive this running game could be, and you've got, 4 returning offensive linemen. Obviously, we saw the injury going into during pregame with Caden Proctor. That was a huge loss. Hopefully, he's able to come back at some point throughout the season. I heard it was week to week, I think is what Coach DeBoer said this in his press conference today. So it's a guy that you don't want to lose. But Elijah Pritchett did a great job of moving over to that left tackle. He played there a little bit last year. He was competing for that right tackle starting job this season through camp. And so he steps in. You really don't miss a beat. Those guys did a phenomenal job up front of getting some push from the offensive line. And I felt that they did, that's what you wanted to see against a team like Western Kentucky, is really pushing this line of scrimmage, opening up some holes, giving these running backs a lot of opportunities. And it's hard to assess this offense from what they did on Saturday because there just wasn't a ton of opportunities. There were so many explosive plays that you never really saw a 10, 12, 15, 20-play drive have to be put together because they were able to make stuff happen in huge chunks. But I was really excited what I saw from this running back crew. Last year we saw flashes from both of these guys going out there and making big plays. Now it's their turn. Coaches did a great job of getting the ball in their hands. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, we're going to see a lot of them this year. And I think that they're going to, like we said earlier, they're going to play into what the strengths of this offense are. Jalen Milrow's got the ability to throw the deep ball, make plays down the field. But no different from years past is you really want to be able to establish that run game that's going to really take some pressure off of him. You don't want him having to drop back and throw 30 to 40 times a game. You establish that running game, get some play action going, it's really going to open up a lot for him in terms of the passing game. So I was excited at what I saw. It's hard to assess watching this game because they're just, the offensive snaps were just not high in numbers, and we were able to score pretty easily against this Western Kentucky defense. But this weekend's going to be a tough test, and then turn around, we get to go up to Madison and face this Wisconsin team. There's going to be a lot of good games to figure out what this flow of what Nick Sherry is going to be able to put together from an offensive, how this flow of this offense is going to work.
And, of course, the offensive line, like you mentioned, really day-to-day, week-to-week for Caden Proctor at this point. Does that just kind of prove what coaches talk about all fall camp long, making sure everybody in the offensive line can do multiple things to make sure they're ready for game day?
Yeah, it's kind of like, with college football today, it's really more like the NFL, where in the NFL, you travel with, you have 7 guys that travel as offensive linemen on that, 43-man roster. And you've got to have those 1 or 2 backup guys that can play multiple positions. You can play right guard, left guard, tackle. You can play all of them. Even with a guy that's really more of a center, but he can stretch out and play that guard position. College football is becoming more and more in a lot of different ways more like the NFL. It's harder to keep a lot of depth on your roster, good depth. You can have depth, but the good depth. You're losing guys each year to the transfers, to the transfer portal. So you really got to find that core 7 guys, and they can really rotate in and out through different positions. And I think we saw that this past weekend. You got a guy that goes down in pregame warmups, and you immediately got to flip a guy from right tackle to left. And plug and play, and it seemed like they were able to pick it up pretty quickly. You're getting these guys as many reps as possible throughout fall camp, and hopefully we can go back to having Caden Proctor back on that left side. He's such a great player, but we'll see what happens.
63-0, the final score from Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday against Western Kentucky. But now this week's opponent, the USF Bulls, they picked up a win against Bethune-Cookman to start the season, 48-3. When we come back, we'll talk more about Alabama against USF and what's coming up this Saturday in Tuscaloosa. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Milrow looking, plenty of time, fires across the middle, catch is made, Williams breaks a tackle, Williams, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, 2 electric early on. Ryan Williams scores his second score. This one 55 yards, and with 1:30 to go in the first half, another touchdown Alabama and a 41-0 lead.
The prescription for success presented by Payless Drugs. Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy with 4 locations here in Birmingham. Payless can hand your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. And Cory Reamer, other than getting the ball to Ryan Williams, what's the prescription for success Saturday against USF?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just continue to build on what we were able to do on Saturday. You know, you finally got that first game where you're able to go play some other guys, and we did a lot of things right, but there were still a lot of things. If you want to nitpick, overall, 30,000 feet, I was really impressed with what this team was able to do. Go out there, score 63 points, and get a shutout. It's kind of hard to get upset about what anything was done, but there are obviously some things that happen that could cause some problems later down the road against some tougher opponents. But we saw what happened last year in this game against South Florida at their place. Obviously, the weather was a big factor in that. We had quarterback situation going on, trying to figure out who's going to be that guy. And this year, it seems like we've kind of got everything in place. Go out there and continue to get comfortable with this new scheme, this new system. They've had spring, summer, fall camp to get used to it. And so now it's go out there. You got another opportunity to go continue to get better. That's what Coach Saban always said. I'm always going to fall back on that. This is a game where they gave us a lot of fits last year. You can't forget that. You got to go out there and play well. But there's definitely some room for improvement. Even it's hard to find in that type of a scoreboard.
Really is. So the Crimson Tide got to take care of business coming up on Saturday against South Florida. We'll talk about that coming up in just a moment as we will get a break for the final time in this show. This is the first edition of Crimson Tide Rewind this season, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, reminding all Crimson Tide fans, don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Bud Light. Bud Light, proud sponsor of Alabama Athletics. It's easy to drink and it's easy to enjoy. Well, first of all, I want to let all of you know that, again, this is our first episode of Crimson Tide Rewind this season. We will be with you each and every Monday night, 6 p.m., right here at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, including Cory Reamer, 2 bye weeks for Alabama. So we have a lot to talk about. Hopefully it extends deep into December, and we can see what this Crimson Tide team will be made of. But again, we invite all of you to join us each and every Monday at 6 right here at Baumhower's Victory Grille. Also, what's on tap? We have a birthday coming up. We, of course, have Johnny Montgomery, his highlighter friends here, the Reamers here, and we have Janie who is here. Happy birthday to you, Janie, coming up tomorrow. Roll Tide. Happy birthday. Certainly glad you all are here. Obviously, Todd Robbins doing a great job engineering and producing this show for us once again. Jenny agrees. We have a birthday to celebrate. We had a wedding to celebrate last year between Todd and Jenny. This is always a fun time here on Monday nights at Baumhower's.
You never know what you're going to get when you come up here on Monday nights. Keeping it lively.
Keeping it lively as can be. Some final thoughts, Cory Reamer, as Alabama gets ready to take on South Florida on Saturday and try to get to 2-0 on the year.
Yeah, let's get used to this roster. They've got all these number changes, trying to figure out who everybody is. But we do have some staples that are back there, from last season. There were some huge players on last season's team. I was excited to see that K-Law was able to get out there and get involved with this offense. He's going to be such a dynamic player. He's fun to watch. But Alex Golish and this USF Bulls team is going to come in ready to play. We saw what they were able to do last year against us. We got to be prepared, see what kind of steps we make. That always from that first game to that second one, we like to see a lot of growth. I'm excited to see what they're able to put together. After you finally got some game tape, you can go back and review, get a week of practice, get that second game.
Cory, we'll see you on Saturday. Roll Tide.
Hey, looking forward to it, Roger. Appreciate it.
If you missed any portion of tonight's show, catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That does it for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, live from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. For Jerry Kelly back at our Learfield studios, engineer Todd Robbins and Cory Reamer, I'm Roger Hoover saying thank you for listening, and Roll Tide, roll.